So welcome to this latest edition of ABNcast. My name is Lee Hayhurst. I am the editorial director of Aviation Business News. And today, for the next 25 minutes or so, we're going to be talking to Jerry Smith. He is the director of aviation services at Cassel Salpeter, which is a mid-market investment bank based in Miami. He's based in Miami. Works in, obviously, the aviation sector very closely. And they recently put out a report looking at artificial intelligence and the impact of this emerging technology on aviation, and then specifically on the finances of aviation. So, Jerry, welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Lee. Pleasure to be here.
Let's dive into that report first. We'll talk more broadly about the aviation sector towards the end, but artificial intelligence is definitely a buzzword at the minute. The report starts off by asking whether the aviation industry can keep up with the AI hype, which suggests there is a lot of AI hype out there. So let's start by trying to get into what is hype and what is reality in AI at the moment. I mean, where do we draw the line? Everyone's trying to work out whether this stuff is actually real, whether it's something we just have to wait for the future for, or something that's never really going to happen. But where do you think the reality lies in terms of what AI is and what it's doing for the industry today?
I think it is having a very good impact initially here. We're seeing major airlines and airports utilizing a lot of functions for the passenger experience, for optimization, the airlines from a fuel perspective, some predictive maintenance and other elements. But a lot of the aviation industry, as I'm sure you know, Lee, and would probably agree, is working off of a lot of different legacy systems. There's a lot of different tentacles to the aviation industry, and it's going to take time to really permeate and for all that AI hype per se to really bake into the aviation industry, because it is just so vast, from the production side to 5,000 planes in the air every day. And when you look at the supply chain of the repairs and maintenance and the highly skilled people, it's just it will take some time. But I'm not downplaying that there is some very, very significant features that are already being implemented, and it's kind of exciting from that perspective.
Yeah. I mean, AI it's obviously, it's always something that it's aligned with data. It really is about, you don't have AI without lots of data. And one thing about the aviation industry is it has huge amounts of data, not just because of the scale of the industry, but because, as you know, all these flying machines and the components are spitting out data continually. So the industry is kind of awash with data and maybe doesn't even know what to do with it. AI at least gives you the ability to use this data in some functional way. And also there's this huge amounts of pressure on the industry to operate more effectively and efficiently.
Yes.
So is that do you think one of the key drivers for the adoption of AI in aviation?
Yes, I do think that the aviation industry, has had its ups and downs financially, especially, the airlines, being somewhat cyclical, though it appears to always bounce back fairly quickly. When you look at like post 9/11 and COVID, the disruptions have not been nearly as long as some were predicting, and so there is lots of room for efficiency. I think when you look at aviation, in my perspective, like from the top down, you have probably the safest industry in the world. I heard recently that it's 100,000 times safer getting in a plane every day than getting in your car every day, as far as safety goes.
Yeah.
And that's by design. I mean, there's just so many checks and balances and repetitive duplication functions on the airplanes and from and everything that directs it, tagging every part in the repair with the FAA, and no other industry operates like this. So that allows for great opportunities, I think, for enhancement. But at the same time, the other side of the scale here is, human performance is still something that is very valuable in the industry, and replacing a highly skilled workforce and legacy workforce with AI is something that you hear the hype about
Yeah,
machines replacing humans, and I just don't think that will happen. I think it's more of an enhancement and
yeah.
creating productivity.
You've got two things working maybe in different directions there. So you, like you said, you've got an industry that prizes its safety. So why would it give it up to a machine? And you hear about AI hallucinations. Why risk that when you've got such a good reputation? So there's a sort of a pushback there. At the same time, you mentioned obviously there's some very exceptionally skilled human beings working in aviation, not just flying the aircraft or working within them, but actually maintaining and making sure they're safe when they're flying. But there's not enough of those people around, and actually AI can help augment and actually fill the gaps where there aren't enough of those people. So there's a driver there towards using AI more.
That's a great point. There is a skilled labor shortage, within the supply chain, and uh, certainly AI and the technology that's being put forth for different verticals within aviation, I think can help to enhance some of those labor shortages, and where maybe uh, more efficiency with growth with maybe less people
Yeah,
needed going forward in certain verticals. Uh, some of the companies that we've been involved with. I mean, it's old-fashioned wrench turning at a
yeah,
at an MRO or repair shop. Doing critical work on engines and different airframe components, and that itself won't be replaced, but the sourcing of materials, the scheduling of the workforce. There's so much predictive types of technologies that are being created within AI for all industries, but specifically for aviation, that it can be very exciting going forward, and I'm optimistic about it, but
yeah.
also cautiously, I would say, optimistic.
Yeah, predictive is something we're particularly interested in here with MRO Management, one of our magazines, because anyone who knows our magazine hopefully knows we also run the Predictive Aircraft Maintenance Conference (PAM)
Mhm.
every year. It'll happen this year in Dublin again in November, and we've just announced we're going to take it to Singapore in September for an APAC edition. So we
Nice.
understand that this is a very again, PAM's not new. It's been around a long time. It's been used in other industries, but there seems to be definitely a momentum in aviation to adopt predictive aircraft maintenance because of this desire, this need to be operating more efficiently and keep aircraft in the air. We know why that is, because there's not enough aircraft coming out of the manufacturers at the moment, so you're keeping older aircraft running more frequently. But you can see there that AI as applied to the engineering side of things to make it operate more effectively and efficiently. It's not something that maybe the consumer is going to see, that maybe the consumer doesn't even know it's happening. They may feel the impact in that they're going to be disrupted less often when they are flying. But it's a real case, a real business case for AI, and one where you feel that some of the stuff that you read about in the mainstream press about AI maybe is a little bit frivolous. It may not sort of, it may be we may be in a hype situation there, but when you peel back the covers of an industry, you see AI really being adopted in proper business case scenarios where it's making a real difference.
I agree. I agree. And the consumers aren't going to see it other than just on the front end, but uh, at some point, I mean, AI is, it's tossed out Moore's law, as far as from a timing perspective, in the semiconductor space, there used to be twice the transistors every 2 years was, how that was advancing. I mean, AI now seems to be, when you look at, the power generation and the capital coming into the space, it's advancing every 6 months,
Yeah.
at quantum speed, and so it's exciting what could happen on the front end for the passengers and the consumers, going into the airport, maybe not now, but within the next couple of years. I mean, not 10 or 20 years from now, but within the next couple of years, it could just be a total contactless experience, both checking in, security, baggage. I even heard that over on your side of the pond in Eindhoven at the airport there's an experiment going on with baggage where you take a picture through their app or something. You take a picture of your bag, and that's it. And you hand it off, and it's waiting for you. It's AI and machine learning is able to match it with your ticket and who you are identity wise, and no more of those tags that you have to put on the baggage.
Yeah.
Not that anyone looks at it when you retrieve your bag anyway in
Mm.
most airports, but it's just very, very interesting things that are already in play in different airports and different carriers, and the manufacturers. I mean, Airbus is doing some major predictive AI and machine learning on their manufacturing process, and also on the front, and also with some of their customers, for the catering experience, and just there's so many things on the supply chain that we don't think about,
Yeah.
with aviation.
I saw a presentation about the new what will be the new Dubai airport, the Maktoum airport, when that opens in a number of huge, not long, which will be very much biometrics driven, and AI sitting behind the scenes, and you will literally walk through, your face is your ticket, completely frictionless and seamless experience. The kind of thing 20 years ago you would think was almost impossible, like magic. But that is the nature of technology. And you talk about hypes, that you've seen hypes in the past. You talked about, maybe how mobile came along, and technology tends to go through this cycle, doesn't it? Of everyone over talks it to begin with. That's where the hype comes in.
Right,
Then it goes
right.
quiet. Then it develops properly, and actually becomes the thing they said it would be. And then you actually the ability of it goes beyond people's expectations. So AI is developing so quickly there, and we see it almost in real time with the chat GPTs and so on, that there is a fear that it's developing so quickly that we'll lose control of it. I think your report does actually cite Elon Musk saying that he thinks the time when the AI will become cleverer than all humans put together is fast approaching. That's a sort of scary thought.
It is
Where do
scary.
you
I
where do
mean,
you sit on that line? Where are you scared of AI? I think Elon's more in the sort of, he's worried about what it could do, even though he's actually pushing it along himself. But there are people on the other end of the scale who just think this is going to be simply a good thing for humanity, and we should embrace it, and embrace it as quickly as possible.
right. And I think everyone always, I always think back to, like, the movie The Matrix, and, you know, rogue robots out there that, and what that could be as the Hollywood, negative, potential bad, negative side of AI. But I think that's pretty much in the movies. I'm just, to me, the peril, when I look at the positive versus the peril, or the promise in my report versus and peril, is I'm just trying to stay level-headed in understanding it. There is a lot of hype out there, but there's a lot of good coming. And as you
Mm.
mentioned, it's happening so quickly, and maybe even quicker than we can anticipate. And hopefully that's a good thing. But the peril being just, uh, making sure that key elements of safety and highly skilled workforce, are not supplanted, and that it's done in a balanced way, and maybe not too quickly, and that I'm not saying we slow it down, but that we be incremental in hopefully a lot of the adoption of some of these, of some of the new technology or new processes that, really could impact safety. Or, it's one thing when you're having something predictive pushed to you, a fare, because I travel to New York a lot, and instead of me just going searching, maybe there's an opportunity for them to push something to me. There's no harm there. That, but when you're dealing with some of the critical concerns in safety and security, I think we just I would hope that that it'll be onboarded appropriately.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, thing is, it's disruptive. I mean, all modern technologies tend to be disruptive in some way, don't they? So, and actually, if you talk about business models, as I'm sure something you're interested in, predictive maintenance, and does challenge existing business models because they're built on an old legacy idea of how the industry works. Predictive comes along and completely upends that. So there is a lot to get used to, and that not the technology itself, but it could be that's the pushback. Do you see an open-mindedness maybe in aviation to accept that life won't go on as normal and there will be disruption?
Oh yes, I think so. In the middle market that I deal in, I would say it's more old school legacy operators, and some of these companies, unless you're $1 billion plus, you're not really spending the money to utilize it. And until it becomes more mainstream, you may not look to adopt some of those technologies. But I could tell you, like, I have one of my MRO customers is doing it's a pretty sizable business doing heavy maintenance, doing C and D checks for narrows and wide bodies. And they're subject to the schedule of their customers, which are cargo companies and carriers. And they're and the maintenance departments of those customers are thinking a year, 2 years out, when a C or a D check needs to be scheduled.
Yeah.
And so they're at the whim of trying to fill and manage their calendar and their hangar space and their people to, to those outside forces. I think that predictive AI will be able to help the carriers and the cargo companies really schedule much more accurately the need for C and D checks for the airframes and for their engines, when they're going to be cycling out. And so that will be helpful to my clients to be
Hmm.
able to prepare. So I think as this technology, it might be top down starting with some of the carriers and the bigger players, but I think it will filter down to a lot of the MROs and parts distributors and other players, all over the globe.
Yeah, that's an easy question. Whether I mean, it often very new technologies can be very expensive to both develop and deploy, and you make mistakes at that level. So
Yeah,
there can be a lot of very expensive mistakes. But once it's kind of once it's there and it's real and people can use it, then you see maybe there's a sort of leveling of playing fields so that the mid-sized companies can benefit from technologies they didn't develop but is now has been tried and tested. And the idea is obviously it gets cheaper as well to adopt technologies as they become more widespread. So do you see that happening with AI, that the sort of the mid-market does sort of ride
I
the
do.
wave of the big guys developing this and then they come
I
along
do.
behind and make use of it?
I do. I think instead of picking up the phone and calling and or emailing back and forth about, scheduling a time slot for a maintenance, or certain type of repair, uh, or the parts distributors who still get on the phone and are bidding through, you know, ILS and different services, on a part. I just feel like there's going to be uh, it might take out some of the human element and uh, some of the disconnect on pricing, and I think will kind of bring into play a more predictable pricing market and timeline to be able to get a part and when you can expect, the engine or the plane to come in for its repair. And that will help the working capital of these middle market companies because if you don't have to have the part, if you can get the part in real time and within a certain band at a certain price, and you don't have to store it in inventory for 6 months ahead of time, and when with more predictability when those what your schedule's looking like and your calendar's looking like. To me, I think that just creates great efficiency and hopefully better profitability as a result of that.
Yeah. So do you already see this being priced into companies? I mean, your investment banking. So
Now,
is are people looking for companies that are adopting AI and saying we're valuing you as a company higher because we think we've got better prospects for the future? How's it impacting your day job?
that's a great question. I'm really not seeing it yet. I
Yeah.
think at the end of the day, it's still about, quality of business, revenue, EBITDA, and management, software systems, whether it be off the shelf or maybe something special that's been developed. There's really good software out there for managing your MRO, or if you're a parts distributor, and that's out there, and it's slowly being integrated, certain functions of AI and machine learning into some of those, systems that are selling throughout the supply chain. But I don't see that yet as a major ingredient as to getting a premium valuation for, the sale of the business or valuation. Not yet.
Right.
But things are happening so rapidly that when we speak again in the next, over this next, year, that might change.
Yeah. Do you see the developments in AI? Do you think that kind of come from within the industry itself with existing players, or are we going to see new entrants come in who specialize in this area and change things from the outside?
So far, I'm seeing the large software companies, all the major names that hit most of the verticals, within business. Also being within aviation, whether it be the Microsofts or the Googles, and you're seeing Salesforce and even Oracle, on their side
Yeah.
implementing. So whatever way there is into a space, and that some of these big companies have their specific angle of software. I think they're just enhancing it in every which way they can, and they're already all over aviation. So I haven't seen like a start. I'm sure they're out there in a garage somewhere or in the
Yeah.
basement somewhere, but
Yeah.
I personally haven't seen a lot of aviation specific AI, startups or companies out there. That doesn't mean they're not out there. I just haven't seen them.
Yeah, not coming to prominence. But let's move the conversation on. In the time we've got left, we've got a few minutes, but there's lots of other stuff going on at the minute that affects aviation. Not least, you're there in the US. Not least politically, we live in a very different political environment than we did a few months back. And the prospect of tariffs is looming, and they're coming in, they're coming out, they're being threatened, and so on. It's clearly going to be used as a way of getting politics to be operating a certain way. The tariff is a weapon of choice at the minute out there, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
where looking at the industry and the potential challenges for aviation in this environment, how are you fearful that this isn't going to be great for aviation, or do we
I
have to be very careful what's going on?
Yeah, I'm very fearful because number one, uh, aviation is a very successful industry in the US. It's a massive exporter and trade credit, not trade deficit. So when you look at $125 billion trade credit for the US aviation industry, uh, it almost feels like a kind of self-inflicted wound potential, or self-sabotage of something that's so good. And especially with our neighbors, and I'm not going to get involved in politics here, but I don't think it's a good idea, any of these tariffs, especially maybe some with China, but with our neighbors, with Canada and Mexico.
Yeah.
5 years ago, the U.S. Mexico Canada agreement, which previous to that was called NAFTA, was renegotiated, and now that is potentially going to have a lot of potential tariffs to it. The supply chain of the U.S., Canada, and Mexico as our neighbors and our friends is so intertwined within the auto industry and also to a certain degree within aviation that I am fearful, not just the big picture of Boeing and aluminum and steel to build the Max and some of their birds, uh, but just for MROs and parts distributors and importing private planes. Bombardier in Canada makes a great private jet, and the U.S. is their biggest market. What's going to happen there? As far as lessors, you have many over in Dublin
Yeah.
and in the UK, big lessor base, but here in the US also for lessors, it's going to be perhaps a little trickier. It's still up in the air. We really do not know, Lee, how this is going to be. There could be exemptions. We're hearing this looming April 2nd date, but are there going to be exemptions? And hearing exemptions in the auto industry, maybe for some critical aviation too. But I think it's a, no pun intended, but it's a headwind that makes me very, very nervous.
Yeah.
And
Do you
and
think this could be a
then
long-term issue, or are we sort of in a sort of slightly corrective period where the administration in the US is trying to just change the rules of the game and say, things can't carry on as they were. And if we feel as though that's what's going to happen, we will slap on a tariff and we'll have the change we want. And once they get the change they want, then the threat of tariff goes away.
yes, and look, everybody in the US would like to see the deficit come down, would like to see better trade credits and balances versus debits with the world. But it's a long-term thing to really build up manufacturing. It doesn't happen overnight. It's the on again, off again nature of how it's been going and exemptions and no exemptions. The uncertainty
Yeah.
is what really, really is killing the market
Yeah.
here.
So whether a tariff is imposed or not is the uncertainty
Yeah,
that
I
kills
mean,
you.
and so you think there's something going on, so you bring in a lot of inventory in because you want to get ahead of it, and then it's off, or
Yeah.
there's exemptions, and now you've spent money and it's hurt your profitability or your working capital. So the uncertainty is really just what's been very challenging these last 60 days. Uh, it's hurt our stock market and taken a lot of value out of that, which consumer sentiment is being hurt. It could get to the point where people don't travel as much and people aren't spending money as much, and it could actually, be a top line, negative for the operators,
Mm.
regardless of the purchasing of aircraft and repairs and stuff, but just from a revenue perspective, at some point. I mean, right now, TSA is saying, more people are traveling than ever. You and I both know every year it seems to be a growing market globally, passengers and access to air travel, which is wonderful. But if the US is moving towards a recession or something, uncertainty or well, uncertainty going up, but consumer spending coming down, that could really hit the whole ecosystem. So
Yeah, it doesn't
uh,
seem like we've got a demand problem in aviation. I haven't been to an airport recently that's not been absolutely packed with people flying, all
yeah,
over the place. So there's not an issue on that side, but there's fear of what might happen. It's hard. You would be surprised that a legacy of the current US administration would be to damage the economy or cause a downturn or cause a recession because the feeling would be that they want the opposite of that. But, I suppose this kind of uncertainty can cause all sorts of unintended consequences.
Yes, and I'm hoping that Trump likes a good stock market. He wants good economic numbers. That's the thing that he kind of, has built his image around. And hopefully, what's happened in the markets and the uncertainty and fear, and hopefully that might, uh, you know, maybe he'll go easier, or maybe he'll change course, or maybe what's on the table won't come to pass
Yeah.
as planned. And uh, I think that would be good for aviation, because both the tariff situation, just uh, in the United States at least, is, I think, is an overall negative for aviation. I
Yeah.
can't say anything positive about it right now.
Yeah. I can tell from the aircraft behind you that you're very much into your flying and your aviation. Vested interest in the industry doing well. In the time we've got left, we've got just about a minute or so. But what makes you positive about the future? We've talked about a few negatives there, but what is it that makes you positive about this particular industry?
It's a great question. I mean, first of all, I love the industry. I'm not a pilot, but I just, and many people, as I'm sure you would attest to, when you do something professionally in the aviation industry, it gets in your blood, and it's just such an exciting industry. And I think the big picture, long-term growth of aviation travel, and just globally, just an expanding middle class, and so many new airlines and operators, and in what used to be third world countries, and are now, part of this global economy. And it's just a fascinating industry, and I'm very bullish on it. I really, really am. And I think long-term growth is in travelers, the number of travelers, and in revenue miles for the airlines, and the incredible supply chain all around, the aviation industry. I just am very, very bullish on. And
Yeah.
what we were talking about earlier about AI, I think, just very exciting, what could be for the aviation industry, with technology in an industry that, at least on the services side, has not been as technologically savvy as other industries. But I think the catch up will be pretty quick, and pretty pronounced.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I look
so it's also an
forward to
industry that,
our continued conversation.
it's an industry that not long ago during COVID was completely grounded. So, that bounce back has been quite remarkable. Joey, thanks for joining us today on ABNcast. Pleasure to speak to you, and thanks for your time.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Lee.
Thank you.
Speak to you soon.